Hi everyone, today we will be talking about how to become ISO auditor. This is high demand secret profession which no one knows about. It will allow you to work from anywhere, build your work schedule as you wish. You can work from home, you can travel in any city, in any country where you want to travel. You can work from the office, you can visit the client site, so you can choose your working schedule. And even more, you can work as an ISO auditor while you have your main job, full-time job. This ISO auditing profession that will be adding to your main profession and create the high demand for you on the market, because everyone wants to have an engineer or business administrator with auditing skills, with auditing qualifications. It's in high demand. It's quite easy to get the qualification, to be qualified if you move toward qualification with the full efficiency. And this video exactly about that. I will walk you step by step through the qualification process. And at the end of the video, you will receive the link for absolutely free, downloadable guidelines, very detailed checklist, which walk you step by step of how to get to this lead auditor certification from any point, from any stage of your career. You can be graduate, you can be student, you can have no any industrial experience, or you can have 10, 15, 20 years of experience and just be afraid for security of your job and be anxious of what's happening on the job market. Or you can be a quality lead auditor who doesn't have a lot of offering from the certification body and want to look in a different direction, for example, in informational security. This is the question what I hear a lot, how to become an auditor. My main role is to hire and train auditors for ICT auditing, for ICT ISO standards. It's informational security, data privacy, internet services, and artificial intelligence. It's very high demand ISO standards. It's a global opportunity, doesn't matter what country you're living, doesn't matter what company or industry you're working with. Auditing skills, ISO auditing skills, it's very useful for everyone. The big side note, a lot of people who doesn't know what is ISO, it's International Standard Organization. It's international global standards about how to run your business. Small business, huge enterprises. I have a lot of videos about that. I also have my Instagram account where I show the live business travel and work of ISO auditor who work remotely, who working on site of companies. Please subscribe on my Instagram account and look at the highlights and in stories. You can see how my everyday routine, work routine is look like. I also have a LinkedIn profile where I'm posting a bit more specific professional articles for ISO auditors, so you can also subscribe on my LinkedIn. It's in the description, all links in the description, or you can go to my website Bobkova.ONLINE and you can see on the top bar menu all these links to Instagram, to this YouTube, and to LinkedIn. Next slide, it's levels of qualification on the way to the top level qualification of ISO lead auditor. It's kind of like a milestones, steps where you can start with the consultant qualification. You can learn something, you can practice that, you can move to the implementer, you can move to the auditor or team member, and you can move further to the lead auditor. The only advantage and the difference, what you can earn money and actually apply your knowledge from the level first, from the level of consultant. To understand what is the difference between consultant, implementer, auditor, and lead auditor, we need to understand difference in the different type of the audits. Everything what I'm saying here, it's about ISO audit. ISO audit, it's a business management system audit. It's not a financial audit. So we're not auditing numbers, we're auditing business processes and the management system. And I would say it's more interesting audit because you have a chance to audit big famous company. You have a chance to see how that company working, to talk to the top management and understand how the most famous product are designed and built. I am auditing some of the companies very famous And I can see in the design and development some of the breakthrough product what we will be using only 3, probably 5 years from now, and it's absolutely invaluable experience. We're moving to audit parties and roles, and we have 3 types of the audit. First party is an internal check when company auditing itself. So then company have internal audit department asking you as a company employees to audit this company department. So the entire audit process happening inside of the company. Second party audit, one company auditing other company, or subcontractors auditing other company. For example, when the customer audit the supplier, the company hiring you as a subcontractor to audit this particular company against certain compliance requirements, let's say ISO audit standards. The third-party audits, it's a formal audit by certification body to grant ISO certification. So the biggest difference in the third-party audit, when at the end of the third-party audit, the company will receive ISO certificate. When we working as a consultant, you can do first and second-party audit. When you're working as implementer, you preparing company for the first, second, and third-party audit. But when you're working as an ISO lead auditor, you can do the third-party audit. So no any other previous steps allowed to do the third-party audit. This is slide what's showing you these types of audit, more like a chart schematic view. The first-party audit internal, then company auditing itself inside of the company, all audits happening inside of the company. The second party is the customer audit, or when one legal entity auditing other legal entity, or when company hiring subcontractors or hiring consulting company to audit that company. The difference between, again, second party and third party, what the company will grant its ISO certification after second party audit. But all ISO standards require company to have second party audit every year. So it's more like a preparation audit for ISO audit, and each company have to do this practicing preparation audit to know maturity of this company management system. This is slide what explain also very important point. I hear that a lot from my friends, from the companies what I do the training. They asking why you are not working alone, why do you need certification body? You can just audit company, do not share money with certification body and just grant them certification. The point is subcontractor or lead auditor should be independent. And because of that, we cannot grant certification. So somebody should audit our audit. Somebody should review our work and review our qualification. In this way, we're supporting kind of that status. When company want to be audited for ISO certification, the company will ask certification body, accredited certification body, to perform this ISO audit. Certification body already has the pool qualified auditors, trained and qualified auditors. They will send this lead auditor to this company to audit for ISO audit. But then the lead auditor audited company, they also cannot issue the ISO certificate right away. They will only recommend this company for certification. So the lead auditors cannot audit companies without certification body. The same as a certification body need to have separate individuals, independent individuals as qualified ISO lead auditors. I hope that clear. It's a very important chart. We have 4 roles, and this is the first step. It's a role of consultant. I just remind you, we have a consultant, implementer, auditor, and lead auditor. So we will go through the role of consultant. Consultant role is the first step, really suitable for graduate, for student who just started working, who doesn't have enough industrial experience or doesn't have enough auditing experience. You will learn through practicing this step ISO standards and auditing principles. You will understand the company processes, adding more and more kind of pieces of knowledge to one puzzle. You doesn't have to audit on this stage, or you don't have to prepare company for the audit. You doesn't guarantee company of passing ISO audit by your preparation because it's very small kind of chunks, small piece of consulting. You don't do audit report also, and you don't plan audit or audit program on this stage. You're just consulting on a certain stage of the process, on a certain piece of the process. This chart will explain you the limitation of role of the consultant, good limitation, to explain you why you can start from that point. You will read the ISO standards, you will understand how it's applicable to that company, and I would suggest you to choose some small part of the processes what you really understand how it's working. For example, maybe your parents have the body shop repair business, or maybe your parents have the small farm business, so you know these exact processes. I recommend you to start with this exact industry, with exact companies. Maybe choose the processes what you understand the most. For example, let's say we have the company including a lot of processes. It's, let's say, big company who including research and development, financial department, supply chain management, HR, operational processes. It includes project management, software development, maybe informational security management on all different levels, including supervising, and it includes legal compliance and governance. But also it includes sales and marketing with a lot of sub-processes, quotation, RFQ, all different processes related to sales and marketing. And one of the processes what included in sales and marketing is the social marketing. And you know a lot about social marketing, you know how it should be, you know how they set up social marketing campaign for certain product or services. So I would suggest you to start to targeting this exact part of the processes and offering companies to establish the ISO standard compliance. Either it would be ISO 9001, 20000 or ISO 27001, whatever you would choose. Start with the compliance alignment of the processes what related to the social marketing. That would be the small chunk of the processes, and that would be your application of ISO standards to understand how it's working. After that, we're moving to another role, to implementer role. Implementer can do the consulting, but also it's a next step. The implementer role is a second stage of ISO lead auditing career. It's more like a builder. You might not know the auditing process in all details, but you know how to align the real-life operation or real-life processes in this particular area to be compliant with ISO standards. So you know the ISO standards and how they can be implemented, or you know one ISO standard. It's more like a hands-on consulting with one particular department or with all departments or with the entire company. You can choose the scale and the volume of work what you want to do. But implementer different from the consultants when you actually suggesting how to prepare this particular department or this particular process for the ISO audit in the future. But at the same time, even though you're preparing company for the audit, you can cover all organization or most of the processes. You don't do the internal audit, you're not preparing the audit plan, you're not preparing the audit program, unless you're implementing internal audit processes, but you don't have to do this internal audit or audit part. So you have easier job because you don't have to learn standards what related to the audit itself. The next one is the auditor. It could be the auditor who is the part of the big auditing team. So you have lead auditor who carrying full responsibility and telling you what to do. So the lead auditor will be building the audit agenda, audit plan, and will give you certain part of this audit agenda and will lead you through the auditing process. Or you can be auditor as one independent auditor who is leading internal audit process. So you're not the lead auditor for ISO process, only because at the end of the audit it will not be granted ISO certification for the company. But you can do the internal audit process for the supply chain company, you can do the internal process for your own company, and you can prepare internal audit report, you can prepare audit agenda, and you can help company to prepare annual auditing plan. So you can act as a mocking ISO audit, do everything what ISO lead auditor do, learning the audit process, or you can just choose the small part of the processes and offer company to do the internal audit only on that small part. Usually it's how companies do the supply chain audit. So for example, when a big company, let's say assembling copters, drones, and one of the other company's supplier, they supplying the small part chassis to that drone. And you need to be sure all parts will be the same quality like now and the next year. So usually to ensure that, we are doing the supplier company audit, and we don't have to do the entire supply company audit. Instead, we're doing only this part of the processes, design of the chassis or the manufacturing production process of the chassis, maybe even packaging processes. So you can choose the small processes in the company and audit that process against the certification what you choose. If you're choosing ISO 27001, you probably will want to audit the company and ensure what that precious drawings or precious intellectual property IP what you're giving that company will not be leaking anywhere. They will not leak this information by mistake or intentionally. This is really wide application of audit, qualification of audit experience, and at the same time there is no anywhere in the standards it says what auditor should have any qualification or any qualification requirements. You don't have to do certification, you don't have to do expensive courses, you still can do audit only with your self-taught knowledge of ISO standards, the knowledge from your experience of production processes or software developing processes. The only one mandatory requirements there for internal auditor, it's the internal auditor should be independent. So you cannot audit your own work. If you provided to this company implementation services, so you implementing these particular processes, let's say social marketing processes, you help company establish those processes in compliance with ISO certification, and after you offering audit them, that's going against this independency principle, because in that case you will be auditing your own job. So you first you build something, and second you inspect us, you audit that and saying, yeah, that's a great job. You can consult company, but it should pass 2 years until you will be able to audit them. 2 years, it's 2 management system cycles. So we walk through 3 different stages when you don't have to do actually anything, don't have to pay big money for some courses, for some certification, or do really a long timely thing to be able to consult or do auditing. So all these steps can be done by self-studying ISO audit, self-studying auditing standards, and all that steps, all those details in that guidelines, in that checklist, what I will give you for download at the end of this video. When you will print this out, you will see where to find the standards, how to self-study them, and how to apply them. All recommendation based on my experience of hiring, training a lot of auditors, and on my more than 25 years of experience of auditing and governance. So now we are approaching the last step. Is kind of cherry on the top, lead auditor role. And I will explain you why it's at the end of these 3 different roles. So lead auditor role. Usually you work for certification body. For certification body, what can issue for the company ISO certificate. But even if you have lead auditor role, lead auditor certification, you still can consult company, you still can implement ISO, you still can be internal auditor. Your knowledge will have just more weight to that because of your experience, because of your qualification. With only one small limitations, you will not be able to do ISO audit on the same area where you consulted that company or where you implemented that company. Honestly, from my personal experience, company pay more for implementation services and for the internal audit comparing to ISO audit. So if you are talking with the company and don't know either to help them to implement standards or to be able to audit them for ISO after, I would choose implementation because it's more interesting, it pays more, and it's kind of more creative work without any resistance from both sides. Lead auditor role can audit for ISO certification, but also can do all different audits and implementation. This is the only role from all four of our roles today: consultant, implementers, auditor, and lead auditor. The only lead auditor can recommend company for ISO certification. Of course, you can see on this slide if it's yellow highlight, if consultant, implementer do internal audit, you cannot do ISO audit for the same areas for 2-3 years after. If you did all of that for the entire company, you cannot do ISO audit for that company for next 2-3 years, unless if you audited one site and company asks you to be ISO auditor for another site. Can be still considered. In this case, we are avoiding conflict of the interest. Again, I will remind you this chart where we will look at the relationship between auditor and certification body. When ISO lead auditor auditing company, we only as a lead auditor can recommend this company for certification. The only certification body can give certification. So it cannot be only lead auditor and the company, it should be lead auditor, certification body and the company. So now we coming to the most interesting part, how to become a lead auditor. And this is slide lead auditor step 1. First, you have to take a 40 hours lead auditor course. There is a lot of offering in online market, perfect online or in-person courses, great lectures. If you will buy course with the online lectures, that will be a bit more expensive. If you will buy course with PDF slides without somebody explaining you all parts, I would suggest you, if you're not familiar with ISO standards, first to purchase a bit more for lectures, also for the course with lectures. It will be easy for you to pass the exam after. Most of the people who hearing about lead auditor, ISO lead auditor profession the first time, they think as soon as they will take this 40 hours lead auditor course and pass the exam, have this nice lead auditor certification, they can start working. No, it's not true. The lead auditor certification is most easiest part because it doesn't guarantee you qualification as a lead auditor. It's only one part of 3 important part of how to be lead auditor. You're taking 40 hours lead auditor course. And now we're talking only about lectures, not exam yet, not the test, not the certification yet. I would suggest you also to read the standards, to download, to buy the standard from ISO.org. It also will be in the checklist and the guidelines. I highly recommend you, especially if you're new for ISO certification, do not take exam right away, because a lot of people who doing the course for 5 days and without any auditing experience, they taking exam right away, they don't remember anything what they learn after when they actually need to do the audit. From my personal experience of talking to a lot of auditors with experience, without experience, with experience in a different ISO, I would highly recommend you to take this 40 hours course, make sure that you completely understand the standards and how it's applied, starting with the small processes. Do not take exam right away. Practice audits, and you can practice audits as internal auditor, as consultant, as implementer. You can go back and look at those stages. You can consult company only on a small part of the processes. You can consult company how, for example, implement internal audit program in their management system, or how to do management review meeting minutes so they can successfully pass in that small part ISO audit. So you have to practice how to apply those standards, and all those standards, list of those standards also in guidelines. After you will take the exam. Whatever place you will buy training courses, you will always have 2 tries to pass the exam. Even if you fail one exam, you will have another try. After you successfully pass the exam, I would suggest you to update your resume and the auditor logbook. So resume will have your industrial experience. Slide step 2, certificate and qualification. So when you're applying for certification body, when you're applying for the job in certification body as ISO lead auditor, you will be applying as a subcontractor, not as a permanent employer. Most of the auditors, 99% auditors, are subcontractors. So you will be applying as subcontractors, but still you require to go through the onboarding process and qualification. If you remember this, our 3 steps chart, so the certification body must qualify, you must approve your qualification. The good news, you can work for multiple certification body. How cool is that? Right? So you can have your full-time job, you can do the internal audit for your company and be the audit company hero who can connect the engineers with the auditing, because you know both parts, you know the engineering and you know the auditing process, but also you can be qualified in multiple certification bodies where they will be offering you certain audits, certain companies, and based on the location of those companies, based if it's interesting companies for you to audit, if you don't have conflict of interest, you can accept one certification body audit or another, and you can have only 2 or 3 audits in a year to maintain your auditing practice, still working on your full-time job. Maybe you will be doing it in your vacation or in your day off. It's kind of like a really great side hustle or really great investment in retirement, because you always can do that, and this knowledge, this experience always will be with you. It's really easy to refresh them even after certain. You can work with multiple certification bodies. You have to maintain qualification. For maintaining qualification, you have to be on top of updated standards, and you have to do a certain number of audits per year, which is not that hard to do because it's a huge offering, it's a high demand on the market, and if you even living in a very remote location, you still can do the remote audit to maintain your qualification. You don't need to travel anywhere if you don't want to. Next slide, you can see on the screen, it's becoming a working lead auditor. And this very important slide because it's also some kind of conspiracy theory. No one knows that even if person work for a really long time as ISO auditor in one certification body, and that person applying for the job for the DNV auditor for another certification body, all requirements are different. So exact requirements for a lead auditor depend on this particular certification body. Each certification body changing it a little bit. We have common practical requirements what each certification body using, and this is average on the market. You have to have from 1 to 5 years of industry experience. You have to understand how that particular industry working, and it could be logistic, it could be transportation, it could be delivery services, it could be design services, it could be web design, software development, consulting businesses. So you have to choose what business activity you know most about and start developing your kind of industrial experience from that activity. You have to do the 40 hours training course for the lead auditor certificate, and you have to have this lead auditor certificate as justification that you did this course and successfully passed the exam. This is important part. Almost no one understands. What you have to have 320, some certification body asking for 320 hours of auditing, and that should be written on your logbook. So auditor logbook, it's the Excel spreadsheet where you put the company name, where you put the company industrial activity, what they do, it's business consulting, manufacturing, whatever they do, ISO standards, compliance framework, for example, NIST security framework, something against what you audited them, and how many days it took this audit. You have to collect 40 work days or 8 weeks of the audit from all your previous time, and it could be internal audit, but it should be against particular ISO. So it should demonstrate your knowledge of ISO standard, for example, ISO 27001. So you have to audit 40 workdays companies against ISO 27001 informational security standard. It could be internal audit, and this kind of the important part. It's your responsibility to put all these auditing hours in your logbook. I also have a separate video and separate materials related to auditing logbook and the auditing logbook template. You can find it all on my website. You have to register on my website Bobkova.ONLINE, and you can find a lot of materials there, and you can find template for the auditor logbook and how to complete that. You can do your own Excel spreadsheet. It's not that hard. It's quite simple. The very important part, you need to have certificate for ISO 27001. You need to have resume what support your industrial experience, and you have to have auditor logbook free documents to apply for a certification body as ISO lead auditor subcontractor. This particular slide, it's explaining to you what count as an industrial experience. The industrial experience is very tricky part because you don't have to have the particular industrial experience in a company what named like that. For example, manufacturing company can have sites what do purely logistics, or manufacturing company can have sites what do research and development. And sometimes people who working in a huge companies doing industrial manufacturing, they're building some kind of assembling machine or CNC machines. But the person who work for them, they only did software development. They don't know any other processes. So probably for this person, the industrial experience will be CNC machine software programming. So it will not be the entire area. It can be just kind of small area what you know exactly how it's working from the design and development perspective, from the testing perspective, something like that. So what can count as industrial experience? If you graduate, if you're student, if you don't have actual work experience, you can count the volunteering project, you can count the student project, you can count internship. Of course, if you have work experience, that's perfect. That would be all of your work experience in different industry, in different knowledge of different business processes. The more is the better. It can be some kind of different business project if you was working in a consulting company. So consulting company working with all kind of different business industrial areas. So you can just put them as a business project with a different industrial experience. They simply put your industrial experience must show the process familiarity. Now we covered the industrial experience. Now we're moving to the slide how to gain auditing experience, because this is the hardest part what people who asking me, students, how actually gain auditing experience if no one want to hire me as an auditor without experience. That's sadly true. So you have to prove what you have some kind of experience, but just remember what is more important to have industry experience and standard experience. We have a lot of auditors who actually don't know the standards what they auditing against. So the knowledge of the standards and knowledge of the industry, it's a primal knowledge. And how to gain auditing experience, you can start with the slow pathway of developing these auditing hours. For example, offer internal audits free of charge pro bono to local businesses, to small local businesses. Offer implementation services to local businesses. A lot of small businesses want to be ISO certified, but they afraid that it's very expensive. They don't know how to approach that. That would be great if you offer them to help them with implementation to certain standards. For example, ISO 27001. No any specialist for implementation, very rare. So that probably everyone would be happy to have you and have your help in implementation of 27001 for small businesses. Another slow pathway to developing auditing, to gaining auditing experience, is offer internal audits to relative or friends businesses. You can audit the business and do the audit agenda, audit report, just to practice to see how you feel from that process. And the fast track, really fast track when you can have this qualification in no time. You can join consulting firm what auditing, providing internal audit services for the companies, and in this case you will be part of the auditing team. So you will be team member or you will be auditor in the big auditing team where the lead auditor will walk you through the process and literally will be mentoring you of how to do internal audit. And in this case, every your day will be auditing experience, and you will gain these hours in literally 8 weeks. If you joining consulting auditing team, you can do the entire pathway from the certification, knowledge of the standards, and gaining lead auditor experience in literally 3 months. And of course, if you're finding that job in a consulting firm and joining the audit team, it's literally the fastest track ever. Now we will look at the process. It's one of the last slides. Now we look at the process, how ISO lead auditors working, how the process look like, and why I'm saying what you can do your full-time job, or you can work as a part-time, or you can run your own business and at the same time be the lead auditor qualified for a multiple certification body. So if you already qualified for the certification body, let's say you applied, they accepted you, they gave you offer with the daily rate for ISO audit, what you've been qualified for, and you start working as ISO 27001 lead auditor for the certification body. When the certification body have client for ISO 27001 on the informational security audit, they offer you to do that audit 3-4 months ahead. And they can tell you, for example, we have a client such and such with this name, with office located in New York. You probably have to audit them remote, but you can ask the client if they want to audit them on site. So you can decide if that audit will be on site or if that audit can be remote. It depends on you and the client expectation. You also have to look at the name of the company and declare if you have the conflict of interest. If you look at the name of the company and you remember what you consulted them 6 months ago, you cannot audit them, and it's your responsibility to say about that. So you can look at this company and say, sorry, I cannot audit them, but also you can reject that audit if you have some important event, if you have vacation, if you have work. So you don't have to accept any audit because you are subcontractors. You're basically running business and you can accept audits or you can decline them. Let's say certification body who qualified you offered you audit 3-4 months ahead. You accepted audits. So you plan your schedule 2-3 months ahead. You already know what you have, for example, audit in June and the audit in August. And on those time, you have to clear your schedule in your full-time job, or you have to clear your schedule in your business or in your house travel plans, something like that. So the profession is entirely freelance friendly. You can also choose only to accept remote audit, but you have to warn certification body upfront about that, so you will not be travel, or you only will be traveling in your location, your particular location. So for people who are living in, for example, Los Angeles or New York, it's good enough that you can only travel 40-60 minutes distance, because it's actually a very busy location with the audit. You don't probably even need to travel anywhere or flight anywhere. You can choose when to travel and where to travel, so it's completely your choice. I would only warn you when you qualified with certification body and you start declining audit, saying, I don't want to do that, I don't like this location, I don't want to do this audit, I'm busy that time. So if you will be declining audits, no one will be offering you other audits, because people would realize they cannot rely on you and they will not be asking anymore. When you also travel on site, even if it's the same location, if it's 60 minutes drive, you still will have to claim the travel expenses, and it also will be in the guidelines how to do that if you never done that. I put the detailed step in the guidelines how to do that, and you can understand this process. And now we're coming to the part of the bonus. Ideal career path checklist, 15 pages, very detailed, step-by-step approach, and you can choose path from where you start. You can choose it from the beginning, from the first page, from the consultant, or you can see, even if you have the industrial experience, you have ISO auditing experience, you can start with ISO audit. Let's say you do 9001 right now, you can add 27001, or maybe you do the SOC 2 or SOC's different audit, and you can look how to add ISO 27001 qualification. So it's very detailed for any different role, profession and industrial experience, and it's suitable for even lack of experience and can be adjusted for any level of auditors or consultant. Full list of needed resources, where to find them. 2 extended very precious bonuses. Don't forget, I'm hiring and training auditors, and I'm hiring and training people who never heard about audit, so I kind of know the most questions what you can have when you start reading this guide. That's pretty much all. I ask you to leave the comment, tell if it was useful for you or not, and what part inspired or surprised you most. Please subscribe on my Instagram, add me on LinkedIn as a connection. See you later in my other video about ISO auditing profession and maybe about my farm and chickens and goats.